Today, we'll find out who will be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Here again, a reminder of the 4 candidates vying to take over the reins: Peter MacKay, Erin O'Toole, Derek Sloan, and Leslyn Lewis. The ballots are already in. The votes are being counted. The party will announce who will take over for Andrew Scheer later today. Hannah Thibodeau has the details.
There is nothing more the 4 candidates can do but sit and wait for tonight's results. But in his final hours as Conservative leader, Andrew Scheer told his future successor they will inherit a very strong party.
I took it over with 99 seats. We now have 121. We're leaving the next leader in a very strong position to finish the job that we started.
When the new leader is revealed this evening, the announcement's going to look a lot different than in 2017, when thousands of supporters packed a room to hear the results at a Toronto convention center. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, this time, the 4 candidates, Leslyn Lewis, Peter MacKay, Erin O'Toole, and Derek Sloan, will be watching results from separate rooms in a downtown Ottawa hotel. And the outcome will be read in a completely different building from where the counting of the vote is happening. Now, the new leader will then give a victory speech in a room with a limited number of people. Now, Scheer says this is a prime opportunity for whoever wins.
The next leader has a tremendous opportunity to outline a vision, use their speech, their victory speech, to set out the agenda for the party, and then build on that, catapult that towards a pre-election cycle.
A source close to Scheer says the transition to the new leader will be more formal than the one he got, in order for them to get off to a solid start. The source also tells CBC News that their fundraising numbers are now back on top, and they can run a fully funded campaign if the new leader wants to let loose. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
So for more on this, we're joined by Conservative strategist Jason Leiter. He's also the president of Enterprise Canada, and we reached him in Burlington, Ontario. Jason, always great to get your thoughts on this. So let's talk. The votes are in, ballots being counted. What do you think? A toss-up, or are we going to see a clear winner on that first ballot?
Christmas in August for political junkies, I guess. I don't think we're going to see a clear winner on the first ballot. Mr. MacKay's obviously hoping he can, get through on that first ballot. Mr. O'Toole's hoping to, I think, make up a little ground and get close enough to be able to make it through on a second or third ballot. So it's going to be close. I think closer than a lot of people think, John. So man, I got to tell you, I can't wait till 7 or 8 tonight.
Well, and those of us who enjoy watching politics are going to enjoy watching. Should put in a plug here, of course, available on all CBC platforms starting later today. But it's a ranked ballot system. So walk us through how this is going to work. Say you support Peter MacKay, and so you don't like Erin O'Toole, and you pick, say, Leslyn Lewis as your second choice. How will that play out in terms of the ranked ballots and the eventual winner?
Yeah, you've hit on the key thing, the most important thing. So the first question that you ask yourself is do enough people have enough first choice ballots to get 51% on that first one? If that's the case, we just all go home. So that was your first question, and I don't think anyone's going to be there, but it could be that somebody gets close. So the most important thing for the viewers to understand is if I got a ballot in the mail, which I did, you put your number 1 choice as number 1, then you put your number 2 choice as number 2. You don't have to fill out number 2, 3, and 4, but you can. And so what happens is the bottom person's sort of tally, who in this case is likely to be Derek Sloan, drops off, and his votes get reallocated to who his second choice was. So if that's Mr. MacKay or Mr. O'Toole or Ms. Lewis, then those votes, it changes the tallies somewhat. We saw this with Mr. Scheer's election a number of years ago, where he sort of had enough of a lead to really sort of be the second choice compromise candidate of a lot of different people. Him and Mr. O'Toole were the second choice candidates in a lot, and that's what allowed them to win. So the key thing here is to be sort of not objectionable to a big part of the party in order to attract more support as they keep going.
So just on the mechanics of that, how then does that play out? Because we've been showing people all morning the shots of them counting it. It's been we understand it, since about 4 a.m. And then we have that first ballot announcement early this evening then, and that's the shot now we've been looking at. Everybody hard at it there. So then how then, if they've already effectively tallied them up, do they then, what do they need to do to go to that second ballot tallying?
Yeah, great question. So, unlike the last time where, a bunch of us, like, me and you and I were sitting on TV for hours and hours as they announced the new round. I think we went through 15 rounds or something like that of announcements. This one's going to be relatively quick. So, basically, the results will be tallied by a certain time today, let's say 5 o'clock or something like that. They hit a button, they spit out the first set of results, those come out. If they don't, if the first ballot isn't definitive, then you get a second ballot, you sort of spit it, hit it out and spin it. So we're actually going to see a pretty quick turnaround this evening, I suspect, through the first, the second, the third ballot. So, instead of a mini series like last time was, where we all sort of spent all night, we're more likely to see a sitcom or a drama here tonight, where it's going to be 2 or 3 sort of waves of results relatively quickly, and then an acceptance speech by whoever it is. So tonight's going to be pretty tight compared to what we saw a few years ago with Mr. Scheer's election. Okay, so
then let's look at how that process then translates into potential voters, because people will be watching. People will be looking for an efficient, a confident rollout eventually of who that leader is going to be. Let's talk a bit about the pressure on the party to make this happen and to make it happen efficiently, and then to move forward from that.
I think that's a really strong point. If you can't run a leadership process, you probably, it affects your ability to say to Canadians, to your point, that, we could run the country. And a lot of people disappointed a little bit in Mr. Trudeau right now, looking for the Conservatives to have a stronger leader and a stronger offering, give them another option right out there to vote for. So I think that's exactly right. You want to have a button-down presentation. And we've seen this down in the South over the last little bit with the Democratic Convention, and a pretty good rollout over the last few days with Mr. Biden. The Republican convention's coming up soon. It's a completely different beast for our team to be able to have to deliver out there for people. So yeah, to your point, you've got people doing a bunch of coverage from Zoom. You've got reporters having to deal with a completely different thing. You've got ballot counting and reporting in different locations, not in one big convention center. You don't have the crowds and the energy that are, normally. A new leadership announcement, it's one of those things where you pack a room with 2,000 people and everybody's screaming, and that's a great made-for-TV shot. You just don't have that here. So it's completely different, and our team, I think, is going to do a really good job with that. But, it's got to be buttoned down, and it's got to be bang, 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 so that people can see that the party has its act together.
Okay. This is, as you say, an extremely unusual leadership race in unusual times. But what doesn't change is Monday morning, day one on the job, whoever that leader is, what's the number one task?
I think holding Mr. Trudeau to account, number one, and number two, keeping our party together. So the one thing about our party that we do know, it was put together essentially to defeat the Liberals back in 2003, 2004. Mr. McKay and Mr. Harper, sort of laid down their swords, said one of us should lead this party. When our party's divided, like it was for sort of a period of 15, 20 years there with the Reform Party and the PC Party, that's when the Liberals sort of ran unopposed in most of Canada, and Mr. Chrétien had a pretty easy time beating us in elections. So keeping this party together is job one. Holding Mr. Trudeau to account, which is what I think a lot of our party supporters, a lot of Canadians want to see done. Those are the two things that our people should focus on immediately. And to do that, right, this is put out an economic plan and make sure that you sort of articulate why Mr. Trudeau's mistakes actually matter. So, our party leader has a great job ahead, or a big job ahead of them. But what I will say is there's never been a time. There's an interest in federal politics. Mr. Trudeau's had some missteps. He's leaking some oil. And you've got this global financial and health pandemic, to make sure, as a platform to sort of say, we've got some better ideas. So a good time for a change, for sure.
And that opportunity may come sooner than later for some who suggest if the Parliament comes back on the 23rd of September, the proroguing period ends, the speech from the throne, and then a budget, chance for a confidence vote there against the government. Could we be headed into an election, and will the party be ready as soon as a month from now?
First of all, I think our party is going to be ready. Our party generally has the most money. We're the best at fundraising. We're the best at sort of keeping our grassroots organized. So us being ready, I think, is not an issue at all. Number two, I'm not predicting an election this fall for one very simple reason. I don't think the NDP has the money or the wherewithal or the desire to fight an election this fall. So we're going to have a lot of saber rattling from probably the Bloc Québécois and our party, sort of saying to Mr. Trudeau, maybe your time is up. It's probably time to let the people decide. But I think that Jagmeet Singh over at the NDP is going to probably be negotiating for some benefits that he can, take some pride in announcing. I don't think we're into an election in 2020. I think it's more likely 2021 for the very simple reason is the NDP can't afford it.
Okay. Well, still, the Conservatives have to pick a leader, and that will happen later today. Get the popcorn going and sit back and watch. Jason, thank you as always. Really appreciate your input all through this process. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me very much. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Conservative strategist Jason Leader in Burlington, Ontario.